Okay, perfect. Can you see my screen now?
Yes.
Presentation. Okay, perfect. So I will just start. Sorry for this slight confusion. So yeah, so I'm very glad to join you to discuss and to talk a bit more about blockchain for social impact. I do remember when I had the first discussion with you and Viviane, you mentioned that you wanted to do this event around social impact and how we can leverage blockchain technology. And I was just, thinking that's exactly what we are trying to do at Infrablocks. It was very a good fit. So thank you again for having me. So what I will try to do through this presentation, I won't go into the detail of blockchain technology and because I don't want this to be a technical presentation. What I will try to do, however, is to explain the potential of blockchain and a few other technologies to achieve the sustainable development goals, and especially to achieve a better social impact. Because there has been a lot of hype, around blockchain these last years, and when you try to separate the hype between what has been achieved and what has been done in terms of social impact, sometimes it's a bit difficult to see the difference. So I will start right now with a bit of context and opportunities about blockchain. So the first slide, I was a bit hesitating, to bring this slide because we all know the Sustainable Development Goals, which has been jointly accepted by governments in 2015, and today it's a kind of the general framework on which everyone kind of agrees to achieve sustainable development today. But I think it's quite interesting, to still to talk a bit about sustainable development goals, because these same goals today, it has a different meaning compared to a few years ago for different reasons. The first one is obviously the COVID-19 situation, which has impacted our lives for everyone. And when we talk about sustainability today, it has a totally different meaning, because if we, we wouldn't be able to avoid the COVID-19 pandemic, of course, but if we would have thought about political decisions and everything related to supply chain in a more sustainable way, the impact of the COVID-19 would have been different. For instance, if you look at the supply chains today, which are quite globalized and not really thought in terms of sustainability, we would have been able to respond to the crisis in a more efficient way. So I think after the COVID, once we go through this, this unprecedented crisis, we will have a different view on sustainability. And when we say that we want sustainable development, it will make more sense. So this is the first reason why I wanted to bring this slide. And the other one, which is a bit long term, is related to demographic changes. And this is something we cannot really avoid. Today, you see a shift in terms of population and generations from what we call the baby boomers to the millennials. And when we see today is that there is a generation which is the millennial generation coming into control, and this generation is much more driven by sustainability, by sustainable development goals than the previous generation. And for them, sustainability is a key word, and they want to achieve the SDGs. So it's not only about just a word, but they want to act and achieve these SDGs. So this is the first thing. After, so in parallel of this rise of sustainable development goals, you have another trend, which is the rise of intelligent analytics. And today, the world is more and more, I would say, data-driven, due to the last revolution, which was around internet. which has allowed the democratization and a tremendous growth in terms of data. And the result is that today we are surrounded more and more around with a tremendous amount of data. And today the challenge, before internet, the challenge was to get information. And today we have access to a lot of information. And the challenge really is to be able to collect this big amount of data and to analyze this data, to monitor in an efficient way. And really, I do believe this is where the next wave of innovation will come from, because really this is a pain point for many of us. And it's true not only for individuals, but also for governments and for corporates. And it's very simple. If you look at an individual who was living in the 60s or the 70s, the amount of data and information he was getting, it was mainly, so for instance, someone who used to read the newspaper in the morning, in the evening they would watch TV to get the news, and the ecosystem around data collection was very limited around his own environment. Today, we are seeing a trend which is called the 6Ds. So everything is decentralized, democratized, dematerialized, and the amount of data is huge compared to what we had before. And I have these two graphs, and I'm sure a lot of you have seen it before, but I really like it, so I wanted to show it here. The waves of innovations are faster and bigger, and if you look at the right, the speed of innovation today is really exponential. So the kind of innovation which is expanding, it's a matter of days. You see the graph on the right. How long it took for innovation to reach 50 million users. The telephone, it was many years, and if you look at something like Facebook or Pokemon Go, it's only a matter of days. So I'm not trying to say that Pokemon Go is the same innovation as telephone, of course not. But when there is an innovation today, due to the internet and the potential it has unlocked, everything is exponential, it's faster, and it's bigger. And this world I have just described around big data and data around us, it results in few challenges, and that's where the pain points are. The first one is about collecting data. So we are not used to have a lot amount of data around us, and we have not developed yet the right tools to collect data in an efficient manner. The second one is related to data monitoring, which means even if we are able to collect this tremendous amount of data, it's quite difficult and challenging to monitor, to analyze, and to understand what are the trends behind this data. And the last one, the last challenge is related to transparency and trust, because we see, also in the governments and in the countries, and that some issues the governments are trying to solve. It's that everyone cares about its own data, and there is the idea of protection of data, and there is a need for transparency, and there is a need for trust. So these are, I'm trying here to describe the world and the next innovation coming up, which will be focused on data. Really, for me, it's really the next wave of innovations. And if you look at, social impact, everything related to sustainability, sustainable development goals, or social impact, that's also where the innovation will come from, and where there is a huge potential. Because if you look at the way social impact initiatives have been developed recently, it's very difficult, either for NGOs, for governments, also for private companies, to demonstrate the results of a social impact program or initiative. And when you try to demonstrate the performance of the results of a social impact initiative, also the notion behind this, it's related to data. You need to have access to the data to demonstrate results, and that's where we see the opportunity, coming up. And today there is a set of new technologies which consist of what we call the new wave of innovation, which are coming up, including blockchain, IoT, artificial intelligence, big data analysis. And this wave of innovation, what we believe is that it will disrupt and it will scale the potential of social impact initiatives worldwide, for governments, for multilateral agencies, and for even for individuals and private companies. And this, and if you look at, that's what I'm trying to show here, this wave of this set of technologies, they are all related, focusing on data. Blockchain, of course, I will touch upon it a bit later. Big data analysis, IoT, artificial intelligence. If you look at, what are the trends behind it? It's really collecting data, analyzing data, and monitoring data, and that's where the innovation is coming from for social impact and sustainable development goals. And just to be a bit, to give an example, if you take a social impact project, the way it used to be designed before, and that's what we have seen, within multilateral agencies and development institutions, the way you used to develop a social impact project before is that it was in few steps. You used to have access to a budget. Once you had the budget, you would design the project, and after you would set some objectives, implement the project, and once the project would be finalized and implemented, you would analyze the results and try to understand if it was successful or not. If it was successful, great. If it was not successful, you would have lost a lot of resources and a lot of money as well. So it was not very efficient. The trend we see in social impact today, and it's coming from the private sector, is that, and also thanks to the technologies, you are able to adopt a more iterative approach, which means that you start with a small pilot project in social impact. You develop this pilot project. Even if it's a small scale and the social impact is relatively small, but you ensure the small pilot is successful. And once you have developed and show the success of this project, and the pilot is successful, after you can scale and you can iterate and innovate and accelerate and improve the results. So what I'm trying to show here is that this shift of methodology, it will be powered also by this set of technologies I'm trying to show here. And if we check blockchain, on which I will show a bit of use case after, so that it's not too abstract. If you look at blockchain, I think the real innovation around blockchain is related to trust. So I assume that everyone knows a bit about blockchain, so I don't want to go too much into the detail, but to make it simple, blockchain is a distributed ledger technology which allows anyone to store data within the ledger in a decentralized and secured manner. And it's structured in such a way that once you store data on the blockchain, it cannot be changed and it cannot be altered. So the result is that, first of all, the data is secured in a much more efficient manner. And you can trust the data that is encrypted in a blockchain, which is very important. And the second aspect is a new wave of innovation within blockchain, which is called smart contracts. So based on this data, you can automate transactions and actions based on smart contracts. So you do have a set of conditions. If all the conditions are valid, the smart contract gets activated, and it's much more efficient. So it increases also the level of trust, because you don't have to have someone who will be behind the scene trying to analyze the data, manipulate the data. Everything is transparent on the blockchain, and after you can also check what has been done in the past, and you can trust information. So that's what really blockchain is about. And when you make the parallel between blockchain technology on the one hand and sustainable development goals and social impact, it opens a lot of doors and potential, because you do have access to better data and better applications. So so now that I've put a bit of context, I will show a bit of some use cases, because maybe it's a bit abstract what I've just explained, and you will see the potential of the technology on some specific examples. So the first one is related to smart cities. I wanted to highlight this use case. It's not directly related to social impact, but you can have some social impact application within smart cities, and also today it's so important, and we know that urbanization in many countries is increasing. By 2050, around 70% of the population will be living in cities. So everything which can improve social impact within cities is useful. And smart cities is something that will be that is coming up very rapidly, and it's based on the set of technologies I have described before. If you look at blockchain, the interest of blockchain for smart cities is that when you live in a smart city or in a city, there is a lot of data again around us, either in energy, also in air quality. There is data related to information around citizens. So all this data within the city today is not digitized yet. So what we'll see and what we have seen in some cities, such as Dubai or Singapore, is that we can build platforms to digitize the ecosystem around smart cities and ensure that all the data within the city can be captured on the platform, and after it can be shared with everyone, and it increases the level of transparency. So if you take a simple example around air quality, so you have a few applications today to democratize and to analyze the level of pollution in cities. So the way it can work, you have every citizen can have an app on their phone to capture the level of pollution, and after report the level of pollution to the platform. And before it gets to the platform, it's captured on the blockchain to be sure the data is not manipulated. And after, this data can be shared. What's interesting here is that you are able to democratize data collection. It's not centralized within the administration. So you can increase the level of trust, of transparency within the municipalities, and participation within all the ecosystem. So this is one example. I will show another one. Maybe I will go directly to the use case number 3, and after we go back to the second one, because this one I think is quite interesting if we have a few people from the audience in the private sector, and to see how blockchain can help private companies to increase the level of transparency related to social impact initiatives. So and it's something we are working on at Infrablocks. So what we see today is that private companies are trying to get into social impact initiatives, and you have a lot of CSR initiatives today from companies, and there are a kind of trying to achieve and to help the society achieve the sustainable development goals. So there is intent, which is great, and after it again, how do you make sure that this is efficient, that the companies actually demonstrate results from social impact initiatives, and how do you ensure that the information which is shared can be trusted by citizens or by the customers. So the way we blockchain can help here is that you can again increase the integrity of data, capture data before, when you collect data, you capture on a blockchain, so that when a company issue a sustainability report or a report on a social impact initiative, the data can be trusted. The second advantage, it's related to smart contracts, is that if you implement on the blockchain, I mean, you can automate the process of collecting data and reporting for the ESG initiatives. You simply reduce the cost of data management and of reporting, and this can be quite significant. And the last one, the last advantage is that based on on the initiatives on the blockchain, you are much more efficient, and you can develop projects and report almost in real time. So typically you would have a website of the company, and you open the dashboard, and you can see the outputs and the results of a specific project in real time. And also it can be the data that you show on the dashboard can be trusted. And this is a great innovation, and it increases the level of trust from the customers to this ESG CSR initiatives. Because today, I think, if you want to scale CSR, the real issue is to make sure that companies can show results, and also to show to the customers the real impact of CSR initiatives. So this one is quite important. After, I wanted to show this example as well, in case some of you are into supply chain, and also from the private sector perspective, because we see also a trend, and there is a link to social impact as well. We see a trend on the supply chain, and the innovation here, it's again to digitize the supply chain process, to have all the steps captured on a platform in a digital manner to improve the efficiency. This is the first layer. And once you are able to capture all the information of the supply chain on a digital platform, you can capture the information on the blockchain. And if the data collection is done in a decentralized manner, which means if each player of the supply chain can input data, and you can capture the timestamps, you can capture all the information, that means you can digitize the full supply chain. And this is quite a revolution, which means especially for everything related to fair trade, organic food, organic products. And it's very simple. That means tomorrow when you will go shopping, if you see a product which is fair trade, there would be a QR or a code. You can scan it with an application. And when you scan it, you will see all the steps from the supply chain up to the farmer. And it's quite important, because we know if you look at the poverty worldwide, the population which is more impacted and which suffers the most from poverty are the farmers. So if you want, so that's why you have a lot of organic and fair trade initiatives. But at the end of the day, when the customer goes to the shop, he has to trust the label, and he doesn't see the result of his act. And even if he trusts the label, if he's willing to pay a bit more so that the money benefits to the farmer, it's much more powerful if you are able to tell the customer, this is the farmer who produced the coffee, for instance, and this is when it was produced. This is the supply chain process, and we can make sure that the box of coffee you have bought was produced by this farmer, and they will really benefit from your purchase. So here again, the power of blockchain is that the process is digitized, and if the data which is collected on the blockchain cannot be changed, it increases the level of trust and transparency. So this is it's also something we are working on at Infrablocks, and there is a huge potential. And in terms of social impact, it can be huge. And also, and that's the power of blockchain I forgot to mention, is that if you look at this, this graph, you actually remove any intermediaries and you create a direct link between everyone in a decentralized manner. And this level of decentralization, democratization, dematerialization, it's really the innovation. And again, it's related to data. That's where the innovation and the pain point is coming from. After I will show, just 2 or 3 minutes, some use cases, and after we can show, we can do a Q&A. One use case is related to digital identification. So, and the social impact here is huge, because we should not forget that today, a lot of people don't have an ID. And having an ID, being able to be registered with an administration, it's a requirement that, and it's something that we should be able to provide to anyone. There is no reason why people don't have an ID. And after, it unlocks a lot of potential in terms of access to finance, access to public services. It's very the basis. And here again, blockchain is coming as an innovation, because it's again related to data. And you can be able to capture, if you are able on the blockchain to capture the ID of the population. If you remember that this data collected is processed and stored on the blockchain and cannot be changed later on, that means you can create a real ID to a citizen, and this ID will not be changed at any time, and it can follow anyone. And after, it unlocks a lot of potential. So I think for social impact, when we talk about social impact, we don't always think about ID, but this can be huge, digital ID. After, another use case is related to ownership and resettlement. So it's also something we are working on at Infrablocks, because you do have a lot of programs, to help people to get access to housing, affordable housing, and to live in the minimum of conditions that are suitable for everyone, for families, for children, for everyone. And here again, the issue is related to data, because when you want to give ownership to a house or to housing to someone, it's again, the process is related to data, because you need to show the beneficiary has to show ownership of the house. So if you register on blockchain ownership of land, of houses, it can be quite important. And after, the next level again, when you go into a smart contract, you can automate, transactions of ownership between everyone, and again, you digitize the process of land ownership, and the impact is tremendous. After, I wanted to show also the last use case related to financial services, because I have not mentioned everything related to digital currency, cryptocurrency, fintech, Bitcoin, etc., because that's what I wanted to do. So I will touch upon a bit here and show the impact again of digital currencies for financial inclusion and for social impact. But I did it on purpose because I think there is a lot of hype around digital currencies, and it's always difficult, to separate the hype between the real achievement. And when you really want to check what has been the real impact of digital currencies, today it's still a very nascent, but the potential is huge. So I will just finish with this use case, and after I will open up to Q&A. So as I mentioned, blockchain is related to data. You store data on the blockchain, and after you can automate transactions in a democratized, decentralized manner. You can do it with data, and after, what is currency? In the end, currency, it's a note, it's related to data as well. So if, and what is important also, behind currency is the question of trust. So you have a note of, if you have a note of $10, I give it to you, you take it because you trust that this is really $10, and so you can give it to someone else. So this transaction and this question of trust behind data can be replicated on the blockchain, and it's not a coincidence. It's because blockchain was born around in 2008 after the financial crisis, and the idea was to say, today the capital markets are very centralized, big banks are doing quite a damage. Is there a way to democratize and to decentralize access to finance and transactions and currencies? So that's how blockchain was born. And how can we increase the level of trust between everyone? So the idea of blockchain in financial services, that's this one. So you have a blockchain platform, and you can process transactions on the blockchain. So I can issue what we call a token, and I say, okay, I have a token, my token is $1. I give it to you, and you have a token, and the value is $1. You can do it. What is very powerful is that since blockchain is based on internet, and the financial markets are not based on the internet, you are very, in terms of transaction, you can do it 24/7, and you are very fast, and also you decrease a lot the transaction cost. So that's where the blockchain potential is related to digital currencies. And behind it, so if we get back again to social impact, what is untapped today, it's access to finance, financial inclusion. A lot of a big part of the population don't have access to financial services, don't have a bank account, and for them it's very expensive to have a bank account, to do remittance, etc. So if you do it on blockchain, the potential here again is huge to give access to finance, and they could have, everyone has a mobile phone. You can have a wallet on your mobile phone, and you can do transactions like this. After the issue related to digital currencies and financial services, it's not a small one, it's the government. So it's quite a big issue. And so that's why, for instance, Facebook has tried to launch Libra, which was supposed to be a digital currency, even if it was not really decentralized. It did fail. And today we are facing a regulatory and legal challenge on this side. But what I believe is that, and the trend we see today is that central banks have finally understood the potential of digital currencies, and you see initiatives from the central banks. And if the central bank is the one launching a digital currency, you don't have the issue of the regulatory issues. And today in the world, you see two different things. You see on one side, China, which is very aggressive on digital currencies and already launching some pilots also related to financial inclusion in some villages. And on the other side, US, which is very, very careful about digital currency. I had a few slides about what we do at Infrablocks, but maybe I will go directly to a few challenges. Maybe just what we do at Infrablocks. In fact, we have built a platform based on blockchain to everything that I just mentioned, to try to digitize ecosystems, supply chains, and in the end, you have an ecosystem on blockchain, on a digital platform. And all the use cases I have just described could be done on the platform. It's really driven by sustainability and social impact. So that's what we do. And I wanted just to finalize and to finish with a few challenges, because blockchain sounds very excited. And when you start digging into the potential of blockchain, it's very exciting. But as I said, there is a hype and there is what has been done really on the ground. So when you look at what is really existing in blockchain, it's still nascent. The initiatives we see in the market still mainly at the pilot stage, and the technology, and you are having some issues around the technology which is not mature, which is a bit difficult to scale, and also a big issue is the energy, because it consumes a lot of energy for the servers and the data. So there is some skepticism around the business case of this. And the last challenge, of course, I just mentioned, related to regulatory frameworks. And if the governments are not willing to support digital currencies and to leverage the potential of blockchain, it will be quite difficult to. It will certainly move on, but it will be a bit slow. So that's why there is. It's very important when you check what is doing the United Nations, the World Bank, and you see small initiatives coming up with these institutions, but there would be a need to go a step further to unleash the potential of digital currency. So I will just stop here. I hope I was not too long, and happy to answer any question.
Yeah, thanks, Cedric. Yes, we have a few questions, so I'm just going to read them out. And I think this kind of nicely dovetails into what you just mentioned. So first question is, blockchain has a negative name because of all the scams taking place. How are you overcoming that perception with your clients and in the market in general?
Yes, I think it's a very good, very interesting question, because one of the challenges we had in the, when we did launch Infrablocks, so we started, so we are based out of Singapore. The company is in Singapore. And so when we started a meeting, either with a potential customer or partner or investor, you had always two ways to go through the meeting. When we said, okay, we work on blockchain, it was either they said, okay, blockchain is related to Bitcoin, it's a scam, and I don't want to speak to these guys. Or you had on another way, okay, blockchain is something interesting, what can we do? So it's true, and that's why also I did not mention, in the presentation too much about cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin and all these things, because it's a bit controversial. And if you look at what Bitcoin has become, it's a bit difficult, and it's true. It's not helping the potential of blockchain. So if you look at Bitcoin today, there is a big issue, I would say, around how do you mitigate the risk of money laundering. how do you ensure that someone selling Bitcoin has done the KYC process and is not a scam and is not trying to clean some money, etc. So it's true that blockchain has a bit this connotation, which is a bit controversial, but it takes some time to go into this. And also that's why I mentioned one of the prerequisites to have to leverage blockchain. It's the day governments and international institutions will understand the potential of blockchain and back the technology, which is already happening in China, at the UN, at some levels with some pilot initiatives. That's when we will see that this is a game changer and not just a scam.
Absolutely. I think I'll also kind of add to what Cedric said on this question. Initially, the first few years of blockchain development was essentially linked to the digital currency. It was only in the last few years that the world has woken up to the other possibilities, which is why in many places it gets used as a distributed ledger technology instead of calling it blockchain, especially trying to highlight the multi-party possibilities. So that kind of is trying to overcome, but as Cedric pointed out, I think it's still the governing laws in different countries that are kind of still creating those hurdles, and especially many countries don't recognize digital currency, and that's also impeding the progress of blockchain. The second question, I think it's also kind of relates to the first one. What are some of the biggest challenges when it comes to the application of blockchain?
Yeah, exactly. So that's what I was trying to explain at the end of my presentation. So you have a few challenges in blockchain. The first challenge is related to the technology itself, which is still nascent, which is still a bit difficult to scale. And in blockchain, you have few technologies. So you have when you do implement a project, you have to choose between Ethereum, Hyperledger. You don't have one technology which is accepted by everyone and which makes consensus. So it will need a bit of time so that the technology itself can get to maturity. This is the first one. The second challenge, which for me personally is quite important, is the level of energy consumption of blockchain, because when you start collecting a lot of data, putting it on blockchain, and you need servers to do so, to store this data, and it consumes quite a lot of energy. So if you have, if you launch an energy efficiency application and you store the data on blockchain and you do increase the level of energy consumption, it becomes a bit tricky. So this is the first one from a technology aspect. The second one, it's so the perception, second challenge we just discussed. And the third one is really related to regulation. And today we don't have a framework, an international framework, or even at the country level to foster the development of blockchain. Even if, and that's what's strange, it's a kind of paradox because many central banks and governments are currently launching initiatives and pilots on blockchain. So they do appreciate the technology in blockchain, but when you go to digital currency, they think about their own currencies. So you just stop the discussion and it becomes difficult. So this is also the challenge, to separate blockchain from digital currency and to be able to bring governments and international institutions to understand fully the potential of the technology.
Excellent. Thank you, Cedric. I think we have time for probably another couple of questions. We have got quite a few, but we'll probably have time for another couple of questions. This particular question comes in, would this also work for coffee and cacao trade? Yeah,
definitely. So it's we have one project currently that we are exploring at Infrablocks, it's related to organic food and organic products. So, and also when you think about supply chain, I think blockchain is not useful if you don't have the question of trust behind. So if you if you have a supply chain around materials, trucks, or something which you don't need to have a level of trust, it's not very useful. Blockchain is important when you need transparency and when you need to increase trust. And so that's why everything related to a fair trade, everything related to organic products, when there is a label and you need to demonstrate that you do certify, there is a huge potential. So, and if you look at also some of the big players like Nestlé, for instance, in fair trade, they have launched 1 or 2 years back a pilot on blockchain in partnership with IBM to see how they can increase the transparency in blockchain. So again, when you check Nestlé, for instance, blockchain, they understand the potential, but it stays for now at the pilot level. And when you look at the applications, it's a bit frustrating to see it stays at the pilot level. But definitely, it's very. And as I mentioned, the future, maybe in 5 or 10 years, when you will go shopping and you will see a coffee, fair trade coffee in a shop, there will be a kind of QR. You would scan it, and after on your phone you can see all the steps of the supply chain, and even some story related to the farmers. The farmer even could provide some feedback, could share some stories, and you create a link from the customer to the farmer. That's what we call from farm to fork, which is a kind of fancy word we see around. So definitely, and for me, it's a very because when we think about social impact, when you check what the impact of poverty today in the world, poverty is mainly impacting farmers in rural areas. And if you give them the potential to create a link with the customers, you can you unlock a great potential of applications.
Excellent. And then we take the last question, which is any existing user cases in healthcare, population health management, drug discovery, or others?
Yes, exactly. So it's very interesting because everyone has, I think everyone knows already the potential use case and everything about blockchain. So it's very interesting. And yes, this is a use case as well. There was maybe a report I can mention, which has been issued last week. So it's very recent from PwC. So again, there is a bit of hype because they say blockchain is $1 trillion size industry, etc. But after they identify the use cases, and healthcare is definitely a use case for several reasons, because again, in health, you need transparency and you need trust. So when you think about medicines and drugs, you need to be able to demonstrate along the supply chain the validity of the product and at what stages it has been done. So this is the first one. After, there is another potential in terms of healthcare, which is not only related to blockchain, but also digital applications like artificial intelligence, digital platforms, which is everything related to e-clinics. And today, especially in rural areas, not everyone has access to a doctor. And it's so for few people in terms of social impact, it can be huge as well, because they need to travel a lot to be able to see a doctor, and it's quite expensive. Take 1 or 2 days, it's not sustainable. And the potential of technologies here is to create a link from the doctors which would stay in the city, and you can in fact have someone going into the village with the digital platform and doing this kind of e-clinics. And after, if you add artificial intelligence, you can do some diagnosis directly with the tools, and the doctor doesn't have to come, or they don't need to travel. So when you do so, it unlocks again a lot of potential. So healthcare, definitely for blockchain, we will see a lot of applications.
Yeah, in fact, also by using blockchain on top of artificial intelligence and IoT, you also create that those record management, because literally with the mobile clinic and the e-clinics, you can go to different villages, you can record all the transactions on a blockchain backbone, and then that stays there forever. So it also overcomes a lot of the manual processes and the documentation management. So that was a brilliant start for our session today. So I would like to thank from the behalf of all the participants of the audience. Thank you so much, Cedric. And if people have more questions, then do let us know. You can use the Q&A or the chat function, or reach us out at devyani@roundtableinsights.com. We will be more than happy to connect you with Cedric. You can see also his name there. I'm sure he is on LinkedIn, where you can directly reach out to him. So with that, let's thank Cedric. Cedric, thank you so much for joining us for our session today.
Thank you so much, and happy to connect with anyone. Thank you so much, and all the best for the rest of the sessions. Thanks.